Welcome to the Real Estate Explainer podcast, where we talk about anything and everything real estate. I'm your host, Brian Kixula. Take notes. Today we've got Marcos Jacober, the deed hunter, talking about tax liens and tax deeds. Let's jump right in. I'm excited to have you on to really cover tax liens and tax deeds. So I'll go ahead and let you jump right in. From my world, what I'm coming from is a cost segregation specialist. A lot of clients are coming to me and saying, hey, Brian, how can you help me save on my taxes? And before I hit the record button, we were just talking about tax deeds and tax liens helping you as well. So take it away.
So you're not alone, right? So on average, only 5% of the Americans knows about tax liens and tax deeds, which are the two oldest form of investment. In one of the strategies, you can lend money to counties across U.S. and you can make in return 8 to 36% return guaranteed by law. And the cool thing is you have always the property as a collateral if the homeowner doesn't pay the taxes. And on the other hand, you can actually buy properties that the county it's auction due to taxes that are being unpaid. How can you use tax deeds, perhaps, in order for you to reduce your tax liability? It's very simple. We have 3,144 counties in U.S. Each county has on average 5,000 properties on their books. What do I mean by that? Those are properties that were offered at auction and nobody bought it because there's not a lot of investors looking for those type of deals. So let's say, for example, I go to Waka Waka County, right? It's a fictitious county, but I go to the county books and I see properties there that I can purchase for about $50 to $100. So I can buy empty land for $50 to $100. And the market value of those lands is anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. So I can go in and I buy a property for $50 or $100 from the county, get the deed of the property. Then I donate that property to a charity, and I'm going to be able to deduct from my taxes what is the assessed value of the property. So that way you can reduce your tax liability by using tax deeds.
How did you get into tax liens and deeds? How did you get started in all this?
You probably noticed I'm not from U.S., right? I'm from Brazil. And although I'm a Brazilian, my life wasn't always a carnival. And I came to the United States in pursuit of the American dream, had all kinds of jobs, working in construction, restaurants, clean houses. My last gig, I worked for a company called FEDEX. You probably heard of it. It's FedEx. I drove a FedEx truck for 14 years. I started doing conventional real estate in 2000 after I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then in 2004, a friend of mine gave me a book. The name is The 16% Solution. And it talks about tax liens, right? So I read the book 5 years after my friend gave it to me. Because at the time I thought I already knew everything about real estate. I didn't need to learn anything else. And then 2007 came in along. I lost 16 properties on the last crisis. Thought my real estate career was over. And then 5 years later, I was cleaning my office. I found the book, read it, went to my local county, realized that all that was real. And I started buying properties. And 15 years later, here I am, number one expert when it comes to tax liens and tax deeds in U.S., bought and sold over 4,500 properties.
That's amazing. I like that.
The best case study. You would like to know my best case study?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
The property that I bought from Montgomery County, Texas, and I paid $6,342.79. And I sold for, guess how much? $1.5 million.
$1.5 million. And how do you come across a deal like that?
That's what's mind-boggling. So every local county, if you go to the tax office, they have a list of what they call surplus properties. In Texas, they call struck-off properties. If you go to Florida, they call lands available for taxes. So the bottom line is every single county is sitting in about 5,000 properties on their books that they want to get rid of it. And all you have to do, you grab a hold of that list, which is public record. You do your due diligence, right? You underwrite the deal. You're going to see what kind of property it is. What is the market value? You write a check for the back taxes. And most of the time, you can even offer less. The county will send you a deed of the property, and then you turn around and sell it. That simple.
And so are you primarily looking at land deals? Or are you looking at, are you looking at houses and buildings when you're looking at these
So you have
properties?
everything under the sun. I bought churches, I bought funeral homes, I bought commercial properties, I bought apartment buildings. On average, is about 55% is land. But check this out. On the world of real estate investing, I find out that most investors, they don't care much about land, which to me is a big mistake because in counties like that, I can, just like in 2023, 2022, I went to Northwest Arkansas on the county called Benton County, is where the Walmart is. Very upscale part of Northwest Arkansas. And I was able to buy 1,000 parcels, right, for $350 each on average. And those properties are worth anywhere from $7,000 to $30,000. So calculate the ROI on that.
The other thing that I was looking at is if you're not always looking at apartments or houses, you're looking at land, or you're not having to evict people. Are you having to evict people when you take over the tax liens, you get the deed? If there's a tenant in those properties, are you having to physically get on the phone, call the sheriff, get them removed?
That's a possibility. So if you acquire a property at an auction and if the property is not vacant, you have to go through the eviction. The thing that I do, I always look at the person who's living in the property as my first customer. So okay. I have lost count how many times I sold the property back to the homeowner.
So you're buying their tax lien, taking the deed of the property, and then selling it back to them.
Yeah, so that's a misconception. Okay, so let me just clear that out because that's why I see a lot of confusion out there. So half of the states, they do tax liens. What is a tax lien? Under 3 minutes. John has a house that's worth $200,000, has a mortgage on this house on the amount of $160,000 and a tax bill of $2,000. If John doesn't pay the taxes into March 31st, the county is going to put a lien against the property. Because the county is the king, in American law, it's based on English common law. And in the English common law, the king and the queen has to get paid first. When the county puts a tax lien against the property, it goes to the first position. Everything else is secondary. Once that happens, and the county needs the property taxes money to pay for all the services that provides to the population, right? I go in and I write a check to Waka Waka County in the amount of $2,000. The county is going to send me a tax lien certificate, which basically transferred to me the two rights that the county has. Number one is to collect any penalty or interest. In states across the U.S., they pay anywhere from 8%, like Colorado, all the way to 36% return, like Illinois, that pays 18% every 6 months. All right. That's the first right. The second right that I have when I invest in tax liens, if John does not pay the taxes within, let's say, 12 months, that's what we call redemption period. And the redemption period also varies per state. We have states that are only 4 months, and you have states that are 4 years. Okay. So if they don't pay the taxes within that period of time, I can now foreclose on the property because I have the property as a guarantee of my 2000 investment. The cool thing is when I foreclose on the property, not that school foreclosing somebody else's property, but the cool thing is when I do that, the mortgage, any HOA dues, any liens below the county liens is wiped out and eliminated. So I got that property free and clear. That's tax liens.
That's right? Powerful.
So tax deed is the other half of the country. It's almost the same thing, but the only difference is the county wait a couple of years, and if they don't pay the taxes, the county goes and auction the property. And you can buy properties at auction, and you can buy properties after the auction, which is the leftovers. And just so you know, on average, we have about 1.4 million properties being auctioned for back taxes on a yearly basis.
When you're going to these auctions, are there any sweet spots or sweet deals that you're looking for? Is there something that you're going after? I'm imagining you have a specific deal analyzer that you're zeroing in on. So you're really only going after the properties that fit your box, if you will.
So the cool thing about buying properties at through a tax sale, okay, because we have bank foreclosure for non-payment of mortgage. We have HOA foreclosure for non-payment of HOA dues. And we have the tax lien tax deed foreclosure for non-payment of back taxes. The cool thing is when I go to a tax auction, right? Different than buying properties at the foreclosure sale, the regular foreclosure sale, I don't have to consider the mortgage. I don't have to consider perhaps HOAs. I don't have to consider a lot of the liens. And also what's make more interest than other types of auctions is the tax amount due is perhaps 5 to 10% of market value. So regardless of what type of property you're looking at it, and as a deed hunter, I never pay more than 50% of market value. That's like my threshold. We always buy deals way under market value. And if you compare it to bank foreclosures, which most people try to go and find deals to fix and flip, they work with the margin of anywhere from 30 to 20%. So it's a very slim margin. And also because the bank is present at the auction competing against all the other investors. And you don't have that into the tax deed auction. I have been to perhaps over 1,500 live auctions in my career in the past 15 years. Nowadays, you can do a lot of auctions online. You don't even have to be in US to be part of it. And it's funny thing though, a lot of times you have in those counties, they have both auctions happening at the same time in the same room. On the left side, you have the bank foreclosure auction. On the right side, you have the tax foreclosure auction. On the bank foreclosure side, you have 10 houses and 100 investors. On the other side, in the tax foreclosure, you have 100 properties and 10 investors. It's mind-boggling, and one does not know what the other is doing.
Why don't more people get into this style of investing?
It's lack of information.
So just general lack of information.
I'll tell you why. So why do you have 100 guys on the bank foreclosure and only 10 in the tax deed sale? Very simple.
Well, we all know about the bank foreclosure side.
The bank hires a private company, auction.com, to market the auction, to attract a bunch of investors so the bid goes higher and higher. There's more competition. The county is not in the business of foreclosing properties. And why the county does not have an interest in attracting more people? Very simple. Let's go back to the example that I mentioned a while back. So John has a property that's worth $200,000 and he owns $2,000 in taxes. If I go to the auction and I buy this property for $70,000, is that a good deal or that's a bad deal?
I would think it would be a great deal.
A great deal, right? I pay 70. The back taxes were two. So the excess proceeds is $68,000, right? Is the difference between what I pay, what was owed to the county. Make sense? By law, the county cannot keep the $68,000. The county can only keep the $2,000 that's owed to the county. So there's no financial interest to the county to promote and make the competition goes higher. And that's why there's not a lot of information out there. If you call your local county and you ask, hey, how does your tax deed sale works? The employees that work at the county, they would not know how to explain to you. It's unbelievable. Try it, and then you let me know. And if they do, they're going to say, we cannot give you a legal advice. You need to contact a lawyer.
So in your example that you just provided, the additional $68,000, where do the proceeds go?
So the proceeds stay there for anybody that has liens against the property. Let's say a mechanic's liens, the bank or the HOA, or perhaps the property owner. They can go and claim that. But a lot of times, not even the property owner knows that the property owner has the option to do that. And that's something that we use in order to friendly get people out of their house without having to do eviction.
And it's not going to, so in this case, the tax lien is going to wipe out all the other creditors with whatever you paid above it. Is that correct? So you're not going to have another first mortgage on the property. No. HOA, they're all
you have the property free and clear.
Why doesn't the bank or the HOA come back and just make that tax payment?
They could. And certainly when the county is going to auction the property, every party is notified. The county has to do what we call due process of law. So why they don't do it in the first place? It could be something because of bureaucracy, or maybe it's too slow to act. Can I share a story with you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Summer of 2013, I was in Montgomery County, Texas, and I bought a condo, right? A lakefront condo, Lake Conroe, for those that from Houston, what I'm talking about. So I bought this condo for $25,000. It was worth about $130,000, right? So I went to the condo, get the keys, have the lock changed. The condo was not occupied. In 2 weeks, we painted, we put some carpet on it, we changed some appliances. And 2 weeks after, I walked with the realtor to put the house on the market, to take pictures and put the house on the market. And I noticed there was like a red sticker at the door, right? So call 1-800 whatever. And my key would not work. So I call up the number. I'm not going to say the name of the bank, but it's one of those banks in America. And I called them up and I was like, what's going on? Is your property is going to be on a foreclosure, bank foreclosure auction next month? And that's what it is. If you don't make a payment, let me talk to a supervisor because this is above your pay grade. So the supervisor comes on the phone and say, look, this is what's going on. I'm not the guy who owns you money. I'm the new owner of the house. And just, what do you mean you're the new owner? I said, I just bought this in a tax auction 2 weeks ago. You guys are late. So you have 24 hours to come here and rekey my lock or I'm going to sue you. So sure enough, they went next day, rekeyed my door, left the keys under the mat, and I never heard from Banks of America again.
And probably not a big thank you note from them either.
Yeah, it's bureaucracy. They're big companies. It takes time. And also, when you take a mortgage against a property, how many times that mortgage is sold off to other financial entities? And
probably a half a dozen, yeah.
A lot of times that information doesn't make down the chain into the county, and the county has only the obligation to inform whoever is registered at the county clerks.
Now, when you're going to these auctions, what do you need to look out for? So if you're going in looking to acquire property, are you wearing your best poker hat and dark sunglasses so that you're going to get your bid accepted?
No, actually, prior to the auction, you have to underwrite all the properties that you're going to bid on, right?
Okay.
And I have 7 steps, which is very simple. So first, you go to the tax office and you find out the rules of the auction, when the auction is happening, and how you're going to pay it. The second thing you're going to find is when the auction is going to happen. The third thing is the list of properties. Once you get the list of properties, you're going to go, you take the property ID, you're going to go to the appraisal district, and now you're going to pull up all the property information, right? After you do that, you're going to compare the GIS map with the Google Maps to make sure you're buying the right property. You're looking at the right property. 4th step, you're going to look at the flood zone. Make sure you're not buying any property that's on the floodway. Right? Flood zone, it's okay. Floodway, big no. Step number 5, you're going to look at the market value because you want to know how much you can sell this property after you acquire. And also, you're going to need the number to calculate what's your max bid. Then number 6, you're going to go to the clerk's office and you're going to do a title search. Very simple to do because you have to be careful. The only liens that will survive the auction are the liens that the county put on the property. That means nuisance liens, code enforcement liens, demolition liens, those kind of things. It doesn't get wiped out. And step number 7, you're going to make sure you visit the property. You make sure the house is still there. What is the condition? And then you just show up at the auction with your max bid and stick to your bid.
I think that's a pretty solid list, those 7 steps. I was scribbling them as fast as I can because I think what a lot of people miss when they're looking at they're going to any type of auction is they're not doing the due diligence. They're not actually treating this like a real acquisition. What I think you said that was so important is you need to do the research on each individual property that you're buying because while you're making an offer and you think it might be a great deal, if you go out to look at the property after you acquired it and there's no house there, then that's an issue.
It could catch on fire yesterday. Like
exactly.
Buying a property by just looking at the Google picture is almost like marrying somebody based on their Tinder profile, right? It's never going to be, it's not a good idea, okay? Not a good idea.
So doing the due diligence on each and every property. And I like the idea that you're actually driving out and looking at the properties prior to making the offer. That way you can purchase it for 50% on the dollar or 50 cents on the dollar. Because if you didn't, how would you even know how to put a valuation on it? Because if you showed up to a property that looked great on Zillow or on Tinder and you get there and there's no windows, there's no front door, or it's missing a roof, all of a sudden that's going to change how much you're going to make an offer for.
100%. You have to compute that into your max bid because now you have repairs that you need to make. And even if you're not look, I've done many flips, right? One of my dreams was to have one of those ATD TV shows. And now I like not to flip any property. So to me, I like to buy properties at such a discount that I can put 20, 30% markup on it. And I can still sell to a flipper, and there's enough margin for them to do what they do.
Yes, right? You're no longer taking on that responsibility of being the contractor and then reselling it at market rates. And the problem with that, and I know a lot of guys know, is that the market changes quick. So you could literally, by the time you acquire it, you renovate it, you could be 9 months into a deal and the market's completely flipped on you.
And also, I have so much opportunity that if I'm going to flip every house that I buy, I cannot keep up with it. Because think about this. So this is what people don't realize, Brian. And that's like my mission and my flag, okay? I'm not trying to convince every real estate investors out there to become a deed hunter. Because what you see a lot of out there on the real estate world is like the guys who do residential for cash flow, they trash and bash whoever does multifamily. And then the guys from multifamily, they look at the guys who does single residential homes. You guys are idiot. My strategy is way better because I don't have to do with clog toilets. We just hire a company. And then the guys who do storage and commercial, they say, you guys are morons because my strategy is better. So you see a lot of that out there. I believe that every real estate investor should be like Batman and should know all 9 real estate investment strategies that's out there because you never know when you're going to need that tool.
I'd like to thank today's sponsor, CostSeg RX, a cost segregation company. If you're interested in a cost segregation study, log on to realestateexplainer.com and click the cost segregation link at the top of the page.
I'm not saying that tax deed is better than any other strategies, but let's consider something. What is the genesis that allows any real estate deal to happen? The seed, the starting point, leads. Without a lead, there's no real estate deals.
Very true.
Right? So everything starts with the lead. And in order for you to, and the more leads you have, the better chances you're going to have to find more deals, correct? And you have many ways to get leads. You can leak 2,000 to 5,000 envelopes a week. You can send postcard. You can put a yellow banded signs. You can skip tracing. That's what most people are doing now. But you can run ads. I have wholesalers that invest $50,000 to $100,000 in ads every month to get leads. You put a billboard. We buy ugly houses. Those are ways for you to generate leads. Agree?
Absolutely.
Perfect. When you get the lead, you have to qualify the seller and you have to qualify the deal. A lot of times, the deal is amazing. There's a lot of money to be made, but the seller is not stupid enough to let the property go under market value so you can make money, right? A lot of times you qualify the seller wants to sell, but the property is upside down because there's mortgage, there's HOA dues, there's not enough meat in the bone for you to make money. And that's why from 2,000 leads, you might going to close in 10, 5, 10, whatever, right? What real estate investors don't realize is this. Every county in America has on their books about 5,000 properties. I'm not even counting the auction. I'm talking to you about post-auction. Properties that were leftovers that nobody bought it. Every county has on average 5,000 properties. We are talking about 3,144 counties in U.S. So there's 11.5 million properties sitting in the county books, which means is 11.5 million leads. The cool thing about those leads is that you don't need to convince the county to sell you the property. You're always going to deal with a motivated seller. Okay? A seller that's willing to accept less than what's owned on a property. And what's owned on a property, it's 5 to 10% of the market value.
So then you just have to go in and underwrite that individual deal and buy it.
So here's what you do. You want to know how I do it? I have 50 virtual assistants that I trained in how to underwrite properties. And each virtual assistant costs me about $250 a month. Each virtual assistant can research about 1,000 properties a month, which I can buy on average 30 to 35% of those properties. So you do the math. How many deals can you generate? So imagine if every single investor that's listening to this podcast tomorrow decided to add to their current business a tax deed division where we can train VAs to all they want to do is research properties all day long.
It's putting that extra tool in your tool belt like Batman did.
Exactly.
To repeat
100%.
Exactly what you said.
And so you're gonna get exposed to more deals. And the cool thing, without having to pay a dime to get the leads, without having to spend hours on the phone convincing people. And a lot of times there's a lot of deceiving conversations going on because you got to make the seller believe that property is not worth what they think it's worth. We know how that goes.
Thank you for coming on the podcast today. I think you just unloaded probably a topic that we could talk about for a couple of hours. If the listeners want to learn more, what is the best way for them to get connected with you?
So they can go to the deedhunterworld.com. They can go to my Instagram, the Deed Hunter World. It's very hard for me to say that word. You probably noticed that. Or what I would like to do as well is give to every single one of your listeners, and you let me know what's the best way to do that, a copy of my book that tells exactly how you're going to be able to do tax liens and tax deeds in any of the 50 states, how you can find the list. And if you follow the Instagram, we have a bunch of tools, manuals. We have our newsletter that you can subscribe on Instagram. So you get every week, you get the list of next auctions and where the best deals are going to be and so far, so on.
Thanks again for coming on the show today. I hope that we get to speak again real soon. If you'd like to get connected with today's guest, log on to realestateexplainer.com and click the Get Connected button on the homepage.